But at the end of the day, they don't have a dude. You got to have a dude. You got to have a 1A dude. And they're missing that at the end of the day if we're just getting down to brass taxes. If your best player is small, you're not winning. This is a game that the big and bold and it favors that God-given thing.
Their first round pick away. And for what? To go all in on clearing cap space in hopes of signing Jalen Brunson?
After 53 years, after all the heartbreaks, and after all of the failures, the drought is finally over. The New York Knicks are NBA champions, defeating the San Antonio Spurs 94-90 in Game 5 in San Antonio. And before we get into the game breakdown and all that, I just want to say congratulations to New York. You guys, y'all were the best team in the NBA. During the course of the playoffs, you were the best team by a landslide. This is one of the most dominant teams in the postseason that I have ever seen. Genuinely, it has been an absolute, I don't want to say joy because they've been killing teams. Like, the true challenge that this team had, or at least the team that stole the most games off of them, during the closeout game of that series, there was a literal funeral held for that team. And ever since then, they have not looked back, as they have lost through the final 3 playoff series, one singular game. And now that game, there was a little bit, just to put it mildly, larger figures at that game that really disrupted or at least had an impact on the environment that was on display, right? So through 3 series, you lost one singular game. And that game, there was very, very unusual circumstances that took place. And they dominated the Eastern Conference. But they didn't dominate the West. Because they won this finals by a total margin of 10 points. This was one of the closest finals in NBA history. And when you look at what made this final so interesting, compelling, and, in my opinion, awesome, it was the fact that every single game was competitive. Every single game came down to the wire. There were no blowouts like there usually is in the finals, where you have one game where it's just like, all right, man, just chalk it up. It's live to fight another day. Not in this one. Every single game was competitive. Every single game came down to the wire. And I think that is why New York won. Because when it came down to the end of the game, the Spurs either inexperience or stupidity showed. Because looking at the inexperience of this Spurs team down the stretch, keeping your composure and, staying neutral and keeping calm, that all sounds like experience and being in those big moments before. Because in this closeout game, once again, the Spurs had their government-mandated get out to like a 15-point lead. And side note, the Spurs have now blown 3 out of the 6 largest leads in NBA Finals history. Right? We have the big one that we talked about in our most previous video. But we also have some of the smaller ones where it's like 16, 15, 14. Like, they get out to leads. And I'll explain why about that later on in this video. But when looking at this game, right, New York didn't start out hot. Once again, they got themselves into the game, started hitting their threes, and clawing back. Spurs would go on like a 7-0 run, make it a little bit larger of a lead, then the Knicks would come right back. And usually, this team plays a very egalitarian style of play, where everyone is getting touches, everyone's really thriving, but there's only like 2 to 3 guys, mainly at most like 2, who's really getting their touches the most and really attacking and getting all the points. Not in this one. Jalen Brunson had 45 in a closer game of the NBA Finals. That is something that is like Jordan level. That is Kobe level. That is greatness personified. And this game by Jalen Brunson really solidifies his status as, in my opinion, one of the greatest New York Knicks ever. And just in terms of, since he's been there, he has been the greatest Knick ever. And it has been an absolute joy to watch him play basketball. Because he was fantastic. He was phenomenal. He was on point. He was sharp. Very fundamental, as he usually is. But it was just a clinic watching him go to work. And he had 45 of the team's 94 points. Which, I don't know if you're great at math, but that means the rest of the team scored 49 points. Yeah, safe to say if they didn't have him, this would be a completely different story. But he was fantastic, phenomenal, and everything that he seemed to do ended up being the right thing to do. And when looking at this Knicks team, going into this game, I thought that if they win this game and it went like how it usually goes, there's a very real chance that OG Anunoby might end up being Finals MVP. Because let's not forget that he had 21 points in this final series, and that's being weighed down by the Game 5. But at that point, I think he had like 24 points per game, and it was similar-ish to Brunson in terms of points, but also the big moments that usually Brunson steps up, and he did, but OG Anunoby had the biggest shot in the history of New York. I mean, that tip-in, that was just pandemonium. It was fantastic, and he was fantastic in this series. Didn't show up as much for Game 5, mainly because he got in foul trouble. He ended up with 5. But some of the old habits showed. Like Karl-Anthony Towns fouled out. He only played 23 minutes and went 1 for 7. Right? He didn't play great, and he had 5 turnovers. Right? Mikal Bridges, he played pretty well, I will admit, 5 for 10. OG Anunoby didn't shoot great. Josh Hart, 4 for 11. Made his threes. Didn't play great. Jordan Clarkson and Landry Shamet would have combined 3 for 13. Like, this team shot 36%, and that is being carried by Brunson, who had 14 of the team's 31 made baskets, and on free throws, too, where he went 13 for 15 and had more than half of the team's attempted free throws. Like, he carried this team, and he willed this team to win. And that is precisely why he earned Finals MVP. And looking at how this game really went, and why I don't think it was very different from any of the other games, is simply that the Knicks went down 10 points every game, but it didn't really matter. Usually that matters, and the reason why it didn't matter is because the Spurs team has a lot to improve on. And I know I picked the Spurs to win, and I think it was like 6, but I thought it was going to be a very competitive series, and I could very well have seen the Knicks coming away with the victory. And technically I was wrong, and I'm going to own that. But I think what made my thought seem logical at the time, at least in my opinion, was that I didn't expect Victor Wembanyama to get to just get worn down as well as he did. I didn't expect Karl-Anthony Towns to keep up his defensive level as well as he did. And in this game, Karl-Anthony Towns didn't match up on him, but it didn't really matter because, quite frankly, the blueprint is out on how you beat Wembanyama. Just beat him up. And when looking at Victor Wembanyama, he starts all these games out hot, right? Like, if you think about it, when you think of Wembanyama moments, where do you think of them? In the first half, right? When do the Spurs get all their leads? In the first half. When do the leads get blown? In the second half, right? Because the Spurs team, or at least Victor Wembanyama, is not in good enough shape. I don't want to make it seem like he's in bad shape, like he's not in like Shaq level shape, where it's just egregiously bad. But him playing the way that he does and taking all the contact that he receives, yeah, it is physically taxing. And that is something he needs to work on. There was a lot for the Spurs team to work on. They were by no means a perfect team. But I also expected them to keep up this same level of intensity that they did when they played against the Thunder. Like, they played against the team that just won the championship, and they got completely outclassed in this. And, like, the young stars who really made the Spurs team truly, like, very difficult to beat, they didn't step up. They didn't show out. Right? Julian Champagnie, he played well. Dylan Harper, he played phenomenal. Now, he didn't play great down the stretch, but when you have no help, it's kind of tough. But, like, for a good part of this game, the only bench points were Dylan Harper. Like, literally, At a point in this game, they had 24 bench points. 21 of them were from Dylan Harper. Like, no one on this bench could step up. Nobody was even playing good ball. Keldon Johnson played okay, but, I mean, what happened to the guy who was a 20-point-per-game scorer? Or at least, I believe he was very close to it at one point in time. He was at 22 points. So, yeah, I know ball. But just seeing the bench be so poor, that doesn't help. You also see now we get into the boneheaded decisions here. This Spurs team is stupid. Genuinely idiotic. I don't want to question the basketball IQ of players, but genuinely they play they make the dumbest decisions down the stretch. And that is why they lost. That is why when it came down the stretch, even if you played 45 minutes better than the Knicks, you lost over and over and over again. Because if I were to tell you that a team is at a 10-point lead and oftentimes it's closer to 20 than it is to 10, or at least in between there, if I were to tell you that that team has had that large of a lead in every single game of the NBA Finals, you think that this gets packed up and wrapped up in like 4 or 5 games. They don't lose in 5 games. And that is because the Spurs, as Charles Barkley put it, are the dumbest team in the history of basketball and in all of civilization. Like, this team, when it came down to it, made the wrong play, wrong choice, and wrong coaching decision time after time after time. Firstly, we're going to start off with De'Aaron Fox. He is awful. When I was watching this game, right, and when I was watching the previous series, and when I started watching this team as the year started, one thought came across my mind. The dynasty starts after you are gone. Because you, quite frankly, aren't good enough anymore. You are bad. You are terrible. Because when you are asked to step up in the NBA Finals, you were the clutch player of the year just a couple years ago, right? This is when you are supposed to shine as, again, the clutch player of the year only a couple years removed, right? You averaged 25 points per game for the Kings last year, right? You played 45 games for them. It's not like in a small sample size. Like in 62 games last year, you averaged 24 points per game. Like, you were supposed to be the supplementary and complementary option to Victor Wembanyama. And what do? Game 5, right? Closeout, 20% from the field. 18% from 3. Bad. Series before, or game before, 38% from the field. And one of the dumbest decisions in NBA history to go up for a shot while being contested by OG Anunoby. Game before that, 29%. Game before that, you know what? 67, right? Cool. Game before that, 23. Like, genuinely, they were better when he was gone. And he is going to be making $50 million next year. Like, that is problematic. And it's bad if a rookie, in the case of Dylan Harper, is better than you at everything. Like, when Dylan Harper was playing, he was so much better than you. And I don't understand why Mitch Johnson is like, we're going to keep the ball in De'Aaron's hands at the end of the game. Yeah, you did that. Cool. Like, I appreciate you sticking to your word, I guess. But if it costs you the NBA Finals, I don't think it's worth it. Because he cost you the NBA Finals. It's bad if online people are like, check his FanDuel account. It's bad if people are taking the clip of him hugging his former coach, who's the Knicks coach now, and it's like, thank you for your service as a sleeper agent. Like, that is the conversation that's being had. That you were the Finals MVP for the New York Knicks because of how terrible you were for the Spurs. Like, that is how bad you were. That genuinely, myself included, don't know if you had a parlay on that game. Like, you were that unbelievably bad. And Mitch Johnson, you're not free of this either. Even in this game, you had dumb decisions, right? You have 26 seconds left in the game. You have that little faith in your team of getting a stop in a game that is this low scoring that you fouled? And yeah, I guess technically you had an opportunity in that, but like, What kind of a loser are you? You don't have faith in your own team? Like, are you kidding me? Where you just have so little faith in your ability and your team to where it just doesn't matter. Like, this is a 3-point game with 26 seconds left. Yes, Mitchell Robinson gets the offensive rebound, but you have there is time left. Like, oh no, I was looking at the wrong stretch. Oopsies. This is when it was a 2-point game. Right, Josh Hart with the rebound. De'Aaron Fox fouls with 26 seconds left. Like, this is a 2-point game. Just play defense. Get a stop. Go down the other stretch and make a shot, and you tie it. Instead, you send Josh Hart to the free throw line, and he bricks one. You then just get, nothing on it, right? You then have to foul again because Mitch Robinson had the best rebound in Knick history. You get only a point out of that because they miss another free throw. Like, right there, they're giving you the game. They're giving it to you, right? And you know that they are going to foul you. And that may have been later in this game. But, like, just the pure coaching disaster class that was on display where it's like, I don't know, man. This was just bad. Because it's like, how many free throws were missed down the stretch? So many. They were giving you the game. They were giving it to you. And you just couldn't capitalize on it at all. That falls on Mitch Johnson. And I know that he's a young coach too. But with the fact that you have Greg Popovich in your ear, you need to be better. And the hubris, the ego, the pride to think, I don't have to change anything. We beat Oklahoma City running this lineup. Yeah, when you looked your best when beating Oklahoma City, guess who was playing more? Dylan Harper, right? And he still wasn't as good as he was then. Or he wasn't as good then as he was now. So you have a better Dylan Harper and a worse De'Aaron Fox. And people were still calling out that decision. Like, respectfully, in all fairness, you shouldn't have beat Oklahoma City in some games. You should have beat them in like 6. You played with your food again. You did the same thing here, where instead of just knocking this team out, instead of just handling business, you waste time and put fans through like a cardiac arrest situation. You're giving your fans heart attacks thinking they have a chance, but in reality, no, they don't. They don't. Because they have somebody who, in the case of De'Aaron Fox, who is booty cheeks. He is terrible. And, like, you also have, as his running mate, Stephon Castle, where it's like, yeah, he was cool against the Thunder. I don't know what happened against the Knicks. Because he was bad. Bad. Like, 38% from the field and 30% from 3. Not good one bit. But instead of putting your players in better positions and just putting the better player out there, you stick to your guns, and I appreciate that you're willing to die with the ship, but it's not worth dying if dying means losing the finals, right? This is a great opportunity, and I know looking at and using the course of the season and, like, we weren't supposed to be here, yada, yada, yada. We only lost the finals by 10 total points, not bad, whatever. But this is for a championship. Like, I understand the viewpoint of, oh, well, we're a great team, so, we'll get back. Maybe that's true. But you don't know that. Like, you have no idea what can happen. And you're here. You have the opportunities. You have the chance to go and win the final. Again, you can win the finals. This wasn't an impossible task. I think, if anything, the fact that you lost this by a combined 10 points is more of a testament to New York not playing super duper well. I mean, yes, going down 10 every single game probably didn't help. And the fact that they were able to do that constantly is more of a sign that New York is just much deeper and better than you. But the fact that you're able to get in that position in the first place is tremendous. And I also think that no one on this team is free from blame. Like, I've already harped on Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Wembanyama. Where were you? Like, the conversation needs to be had now, where it's like, instead of calling you the alien, are you just Silver Surfer? Because you're always a silver medal, right? At 17, right? The iconic moment where you lose and Chet Holmgren gets like whatever that tournament MVP was, right? Guess what place you came in? Second, right? FIBA, or not FIBA, the Olympics, where did you come? Second. NBA Cup, where did you come? Second. And in the NBA Finals, where did you come? Second. Like, that is the conversation that is being had. I don't necessarily think it's fair. I think it's a little bit disingenuous. But that comes out of a place of you didn't execute. Like, you are 7'4", realistically closer to 7'5". And you shot 42% from the field and 27% from three. And down the stretch, you missed clutch free throws. Down the stretch, you looked tired. Down the stretch, you let your team down. Because let's not forget that if Victor Wembanyama makes his free throws in Game 4 and doesn't throw the ball off of Stephon Castle's back and makes a shot, the Spurs right now are up 3-2. And we get to go back to New York for a big Game 6 that could decide the title. Like, that is all in the realm of possibility. What I'm saying and what I'm asking for, or at least from Victor Wembanyama, isn't impossible. Make one singular shot, keep up the intensity and aggression, and just don't choke. Like, what? And I still think that, you could be the best in the world, but I have to hold you to a higher standard than that. You didn't play well. And I know whenever your role players don't step up and your running mate is booty cheeks, yeah, it hurts. But you're also the star player, so you need to step up yourself as well. Look in the mirror and realize, if we want to have any chance of winning, I got to drop like 40 to make it happen. And he never did that. And it's just, New York, they were just much better down the stretch of this game, and they are a much better overall team, and that is precisely why they won. Once again, congratulations to New York. I don't want to make it seem like you guys were a bad team, because historically, you are one of the best teams ever in the postseason. Like, you are legitimately so unbelievably dominant that you were up there with the literal Kevin Durant-era Warriors, where most people, like myself, didn't even bother trying to come up with predictions or anything like that because everyone knew it was going to be. Like, you're up there with that. Like, you were so dominant. And I think that a lot of discussion that, this is just a flash in the pan for New York. No, it's really not. They could very easily run this thing back. And I know we say this with every single championship team, but like when we look at the Thunder, yeah, makes sense. They made it to the Western Conference Finals and went to a Game 7. Obviously, we can say that they can run it back, right? The Celtics, not many people really said, they can just run it back, whatever. They can run it back for one more season, but then they have to, adjust and change course, right? The Nuggets, most people are like, yeah, they're going to have to pay whatever. They have the best player in the world, but if they can build around them, yeah, maybe then they can be back. They didn't build well around Jokic, right? Trying to think of other, teams that have won the championship. The Warriors, man, do you think Jordan Poole was going to lead you to a championship? Yeah. Like, I didn't think. I thought that was more of a flash in the pan. You then also get the Bucks, right? Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, both of those two are old. Giannis has been able to stay healthy, right? The Raptors, everyone knew Kawhi was leaving the Lakers. That one was more, again, of front office incompetence. And what New York has shown is that they are not an incompetent front office. And how many of those teams that I rattled off were because, and the reason they didn't get back was because of an incompetent front office. Like, New York could very well run this thing back. Like, looking at ages, OG Anunoby, going to turn 29, right? Karl-Anthony Towns, he's 30, right? Josh Hart, he's a little bit older, 31. Mikal Bridges, right? 29. Jalen Brunson, 29. Like, they can very easily run this thing back. And they could very easily win another championship. Now, I think that they won't get as big of a lock-in in the playoffs, or they just go on to be a historically great team. Maybe they will. Who knows? But they can very well run this thing back. And I don't love we just say this with every championship team. This one, it actually makes sense. They're all under contract for a while. They should all be still in their prime. And we know they work together well, so I don't understand why we're making it seem like they could never be back. And speaking of coming back, yeah, the Spurs, they have a lot of work to do in the offseason. First of all, Get rid of Luke Cornett, because I think that with the amount of money he's making, you can get a better backup center for $10 million. Get rid of De'Aaron Fox. Get rid of Harrison Barnes, Kelly Olynyk. Shed some of the dead wood on this team. Get them out of here. And go get a power forward next to Wembanyama, and you're good, and you're right back. Right? Like this, neither one of these two teams are necessarily what I think flash in the pans, which is what's seeming online that this is their one opportunity, or at least more so for the Knicks. Really not. But, I mean, for this Knicks team, they were so unbelievably good. Once again, shout out. And for the Spurs, tough break. I know I harped on you a ton. And I think that's because I have high standards for you, simply because you have who I think, even right now, a little bit nasty of a discussion I have. I still think that Victor Wembanyama is the best player in the world. So when you have all of that, in your mind, you want to hold the team to a high standard, and that's what I do. I hold the Spurs to a high standard. And, they didn't execute here. Who knows if they'll be back next year, because I have a feeling it's going to be the exact same Western Conference Finals matchup. That is, barring any major injury for any team, right? You never want to see any injuries happen. But I think that we could very well see these two teams match up again in the finals next year. Very possible. Because who else in the East is as good as this Knicks team? Genuinely. Who? The Hawks? Be serious. The Cavs? No. Pistons? No. Raptors? No. Who? Celtics? Get out of here. 76ers? No. I mean, who? Bulls? Trust. We're winning this, or we are going to win the NBA Finals. Who else? Genuinely. Who? No one. Like, the Knicks could very well be back-to-back champions, or at the very least compete and go deep in the playoffs. The Spurs, that's going to be a little bit tougher because the West is just better. But they could very well be back this time next year with a different result, because Julian Champagnie, he's not an old cat either, as he's turning 25 soon, right? Victor Wembanyama, we know, 22. We know that, right? De'Aaron Fox, he's going to be gone, or at least he should be gone. Send him to the moon, right? Devin Vassell, he's 25. Oh, he is. Look at that. I know ball. Stephon Castle, 21. Oh, my goodness, I know ball. I don't even have to look at what the players' ages are. Carter Bryant, 20? I know ball. But, this is on a serious note, even with Stephon Castle, where not Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, he's 20. This is a young team, and they can be able to come back and, compete next year. It's just about whether or not they can execute. And I think this was a very big, a lot of people compare this to the 07 Cavs, where it's you just had to get your teeth kicked in to show you're not immortal. And also, when looking at this, no one thought they'd be here, right? No one thought they'd be in the finals, or at least have any type of chance of competing in the finals, and only lose the finals by a combined 10 points. This is a very successful year for this Spurs team. And, maybe this experience gets them something. Maybe that gives them something to prove. Because there is a lot of work to be done, and I will be posting about all 30 NBA teams and what work needs to get done for them to compete in the future. Or maybe I just do the teams that, actually have a chance of at least maybe I just do the teams that have an actual chance of competing. I'm not going to talk about the Kings, maybe, who knows. But, a lot of work to be done for the Spurs team if they want to get back here next year. For the Knicks, don't make any brash decisions and just enjoy that silverware in your closet. But this is the Scoop with Coop. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe. It's absolutely crucial to the channel, and we like it. We're gonna have a lot of World Cup content coming out, so if you're interested in soccer or football, make sure to go ahead and subscribe, as you can really come back around the channel. You can see more of the content that we're posting. We're trying to make sure this is the summer of the Scoop, right? And since this is the summer of the Scoop, this is the Scoop with Coop, and until next time, so long, everybody.